Board games board games board games, it's what I'm talking about. Board games, I still will not shout. Board games, I don't have to be silent. Board games, but I'm being relatively quiet. Board games, it's something I can enjoy. Board games, it's something that's resulted you can employ as a conversation topic, and they can be fun, and we can get stuff done. Anyway, morning, everyone. I hope you are having a decent morning and you're not too terrible wherever you are. I am drinking vitamin juice, by which I mean water with an effervescent tablets in it with multivitamins. And today I'm going to be answering a few more questions. So if you have literally any questions for me, ask them in the comments. And unless they're like completely like terrible, like the only questions I won't answer are those that are like really, there's got to be a line of decency. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, today is another question thing, and then I'm going to talk about something I've enjoyed recently, something brilliant, games that I've played, other stuff I've done, and then answer the questions. And good morning, Dave Weatherall. And actually, Dave Weatherall is the creator of Kaleido Cards, and I was just listening to the Sheffield podcast after seeing it up there. Nice podcast. But and I guess, yeah, I'm going to say that something that I've enjoyed recently. I quite liked listening to Dave Weatherall on the podcast. I'm going to give a shout out to that Sheffield podcast. They seem to be a nice group of people, just all talking together. And they had Dave Weatherall, who was like all about Kaleido Cards, which is another game system, kind of like the L deck. You can play loads of games with it. And Dave Weatherall's just fun to listen to. Dave's a lovely fellow. Anyway, so that is something that I've enjoyed recently. Let's talk about something brilliant. And morning, Jessica. It's lovely to see you, Jess. So I want to talk about envelopes. And the postal service, I mean, that's a really brilliant thing. I'm not going to show you like this full address. Like, I'm sending a thing to New Zealand, which is quite exciting. Today I'm going to be going to the post office. I think I've got like 5 things that I've got to send. I try to save it up once a week. And morning, Alan, it's really awesome to see all these people coming together. And yeah, just focusing on what's brilliant about Post. Okay, firstly, I want to talk about the fact that there's still people out there carrying on to do their work. It's not like, someone made the point, oh, these aren't heroes. It's not like they signed up for this. They didn't sign up for a difficult job, but by the same time, they stepped up to the plate. They have this job that we need to post things, to get stuff from people to people, and that's continuing to happen, and that's awesome. And so thank you to everyone who's working for Royal Mail, and thank you to everyone who's continuing to bring the post. I mean, it makes me happy when I get to one of the magazines. I've got subscriptions to 2 magazines, for the record, Tabletop Gaming Magazine and Edge Magazine, which I think I've been reading since issue 50. And yeah, this is such a wonderful post thing. And then, I'm not saying that all mail is fun, but, some mail is fun. And so thank you, postal people, for keeping that coming. And thank you for letting me send stuff. And even during normal times, I want to acknowledge the fact that it's so amazing that I can post my game and then someone in New Zealand or the Philippines gets my game, and that makes me think, oh, excellent, someone around the world is playing it, and that's awesome. And so that's my brilliant thing of the week, the post. So hello again to everyone. Hello, Kate. Thank you so much, Jess. And let's now talk about games that I have played. So didn't think that I'd have much to talk about because it's a daily show. So the question is how many games do I actually play in a single day? And the answer is 4 games. That's the answer. So it was kind of two. So actually, no, I played 5 games. Yeah, 5 games. Wow, that's quite a lot to play in one day. It seems to be like a lot of it is via video chat. So I've been working a bit more on this kind of game, which is about filling in numbers. So I used the numbers from the mind, 1 to 22, and then you fill them in along a single track, and you see how many things you've got, and you see how many strings you've got, which is just numbers that are ascending. You take off any strings that are shorter than 3. That's your score. You also double your longest. As you can see, I think I got 24, but Sarah won with 25 points. And then we played a version with playing cards, which is something that I want to share with a lot of people. And with playing cards, which I've got this jumbo pack here, it's got the 4 suits plus a wild one, and it's all about fitting into numbers. And if you ever manage to get all 5, then you score a bingo and you double the points. And that's something that I really want to share with families. So if you're watching, if you're a parent, or if you're like, if your mental age is around, let's say between 5 and 10, or yeah, around that age, or like if you're a parent of someone whose mental age is around 5 to 10, and you want to arrange a date for me to play some number games and potentially some word games, then let me know, because hopefully that will be a good thing. I then played a party game by someone called Danielle. I can't remember their surname. That was a fun, nice thing. So basically, yesterday was a playtest run by Kathleen Mercury. And Kathleen Mercury is such a wonderful person. Kathleen Mercury is an educator based in America and teaching children how to make games and helping children to become better versions of themselves. And so Kathleen Mercury, awesome person. And we were testing out games, just chatting about them, trying to work out how to make them better. And someone made a party game called Excuses that we played. It was fun, like not going to get too much into that. And finally, at the end of the night, I played Mini Muckle with my housemate who is French. And so you can see this is my sheet. The words that I came up with the first time were yaourt, te, e, ta, noir, or it could be nuts or black, il and I, and you get to use wildcards. So just for the record, my housemate only uses 3 wildcards. I get to use 4 because, French isn't my natural language. And because I got that advantage, I was actually only 1 point behind him. So I'm really proud of Mini Muckle because it's like half the deck and you get a bit more accessibility because of the wildcards. It's simpler rules. And again, that's also something that if you would like to talk to Eric, either clarify what you mean by that, because that sounds a wee bit I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm slightly disturbed. I might be completely inferring the wrong thing, but anyway, so yeah, I'm really proud of Mini Muckle, and Mini Muckle is also a thing that's suitable for young children. I played it with my nieces, who are the youngest one's like 8 years old, so they're pretty advanced. But if you can write words, there are versions of it that could be played by even younger people. Okay, so now what else? Firstly, thank you everyone for saying hello. Hello, Penny, and it's lovely to see that you're well. Eric, as I say, I don't know what couch auction is, and unless someone's got that's, let's see if I can, unless I'm going to delete this comment, I think, because that just feels a bit weird to me, at least. Okay, so back to what I've been doing yesterday. So yesterday was a good day. Like sometimes I like to spend a bit of time on Twitter kind of saying, hey, this is what I've done yesterday. And I was hoping to write the rules of my games but I didn't manage to do that because writing, it's taking a lot of energy. But I did end up, taking some time for myself, sitting down, watching a film. I went on a big long walk, and I to a place where I would normally cycle to, bought some eggs and bananas, which for me are like the essentials. And yeah, also some tomatoes and yeah, some other cucumbers because they were going cheap at the market as well. Anyway, so I have had a good day yesterday, and I hope that all of you have also had a wonderful day. Now, I'm going to start answering some questions. So firstly, and Eric, unless you kind of ask something about, I've never blocked anyone. So let's talk about blocking people, because Eric, I kind of feel like your comments are, borderline. I'm feeling like they're being quite rude. This is not a wig. This is my personal. This is my hair, and like I don't know what you mean by a couch auction. So I'm going to block you unless you kind of explain yourself. So please, I've never blocked anyone before, and my reason for okay, yeah, I'm blocking you. Okay. User was blocked. Sorry about that, everyone. Thank you, Kate, for staying in my thing and asking people to be respectful, because that's what it is. So ideally, I would like to have, if someone's, I don't like the idea of blocking people, and this is actually the first time literally that I've ever done it. So I have blocked them from the chat. Hopefully they cannot post anything more. And the reason why you might want to block someone is because they're being disruptive, because potentially they're putting more stress on you than is. Yeah, sometimes like it's why deal with some idiots? Like if they're going to be, hey, what are you? It's like, what's on earth are you doing that for? Like, why are you doing that? But at the same time, like sometimes you hope that people are going to be respectful, that people might just be misinformed, but then it turns out at a certain point that people are just being trolls, being abusive, and just trying to cause trouble and being really horrible. And unfortunately, that's the way that some people are. Sorry. This is something I was going to show later. Yeah, I've got. Sorry, just a minute. So if anyone has any questions that aren't about my identity, and that's the kind of question, as an example, that I will not answer. So if you have any reasonable questions, then please ask them. Yeah. So, yeah. And just to show you my things, these are some puns that I made, some drawings. So I'm just going to talk about the cat pictures. Thank you very much, Kate, Alan, and Jess, for your thing, for your support. Thank you, Michelle. And yeah, so this is so Catchier, there's a story behind this. So Catchier was originally it's part of a sequence. So there is Catchy, Catchier, and the Catchiest. So Catchy is a picture of someone of yeah, cat that's kind of in a yoga pose and it's enjoying stuff. The cat cheer is cheering people on. Originally, it was a sort of cheerleader with pom poms, but then I made this version and it's allowed me to have like a cat that was a little bit more grumpy, and that felt funnier because it's more in the kind of spirits of a cat. Um, the cat, yeah, we've got the cat's nap, which is the new cards that was the most popular for the seventh cards. That's going to be a sticker as well. And yeah, I like Catnap because it's kind of, I enjoy this sort of colouring. The way that I like to colour things in is using the colours to kind of symbolise texture and yeah, yellow through to green. Obviously, I stayed away from green a little bit here, but I'm proud of how it looks, like a mixture of energy and abstract and representational. Then catch, this is, yeah, I use blue instead of black to be a little bit more interesting. But I had quite a few versions of catch. So I had a more humanoid one where the cat was catching something with its paw. I had a version where it had a little contraption. And I had a version where it had like a hat with loads of different gloves. And then this was the one that it's like, yeah, I'm kind of just doing my own thing. Pyramid scheme. So that's this is actually a pun that I found on the internet. I've got to be honest. So some of the puns I came up with myself. I mean, if you just think of what you can have with cat or catch or mew or musician, and so yeah, let me actually make myself a little bit smaller. I'm up to kind of showing my face again. So pyramid scheme. Yeah, Dave Wedderall asks for Kaleido Cats. Dave Wedderall is a troll in the best way. Like when you tell Dave that they're out of line, they step up and they do it to kind of be cheeky and toe the line, and then they feel it. But then they're like, you know, they're not doing it in an antagonistic way. Dave is doing it in a lovely kind of what can I get with let's be a bit cheeky way. And Dave actually, so I want to tell a story about my cat wall. So let me tell you about my cat wall that, yeah, actually, if I'm going to, someone suggested that I do a story time, and if we get at least 5 likes, I will tell the full story of the cat wall. Otherwise, I'm just going to carry on doing this pyramid scheme, or if someone asks for it, if someone just asks for this story, I'll probably tell it to you. So pyramid scheme, this one I found on the internet. If you just think of the words mew, feline, cat, and purr, there's a lot of words that are really obvious. But when you get into it, like pyramid scheme, that was when I started off looking on the internet. What words start with cat? What words start with PER? And yeah, pyramid scheme, I'm proud of like the way it turned out. And then the cat burglist, as opposed to because if you've got a cat burglar, obviously cat burgle must be a thing, and you must have the cat burglist. And so let me actually just cat stickers to amuse you. Whoops. If you do like the pictures, then do that. Then that is a thing that you can go on to. And that is me. And there we go. So thank you very much, everyone, again, for your support. I really appreciate it. I'm going to now go back through all the questions and answer the ones that are reasonable. So have you played a game about the Postal Service? Yes. There is that one game from, I think, 2010-ish, the German game about the Postal Service. It's kind of a pick up and deliver game, but I can't remember what it was called. It was so long ago. This is really terrible. I'm sorry, that's not very interesting. Can we block Eric? Yes, we can. And thank you very much, Kate and Bez. And do the cats have a backstory? Like, why is that a cat's ass trophy? Frankly, at a certain point, you just kind of start thinking what puns can work with cats. And cats as trophy, yeah, once you've got, okay, cats as trophy. Oh wow, it's cats as trophy. And I love taking the pun to the next level and fitting in as much punnage as you can do. And Dave Wedderall asks, what's your favourite cat's pun? Because they actually meant to say pun, apparently. What's my favourite cat's pub? I do not know any cat's pubs. But as for what's my favourite cat's pun, out of my own, I would say my personal favourite is probably Cats Lady Don't. Just because it takes a little bit of thinking and you kind of feel, oh, yeah, once you get it. Cats Has Trophy, I like it because there's it really breaks down every word. And yeah, Pyramid Scheme is probably my favourite. Hi, Ash. How? Sorry, I'm trying to say your name. Aishvarya. Aye, that's a lovely name. Thank you for popping by. And Kate, so are there going to be versions for other animals, dogs, pigs, Cthulhu's? So, true story, I was trying to think of a game that was themed around dogs. So, the question is, what would a dog-themed game be all about? Because genuinely, you can't just take Kitty Cataclysm and then redo all the puns. That's terrible. Because Kitty Cataclysm, it's like all about being mean, about getting in each other's way, about being vindictive, clawing everyone. And, oh yeah, Kate McMillan, Turn and Taxis, that is absolutely the game that I was talking about. Thank you very much. That is the answer for you, Dave Wedderall. That is actually a fine game about the post. It's not anime. I mean, if you want my 10-second vague remembrance from how I remembered it, like basically 10 years ago, it's all right. It's not amazing. It was good fun. I would play it again happily. So are there going to be versions for other animals? Back to that. So if you have a game about being vindictive, if you have a game about being vindictive and stealing and donating your bad stuff, then that's quite catty. Whereas if you have a game about dogs, then, you know, presumably the dog should be cooperating. Presumably the dog should be loving each other. Like maybe if you get to do the same thing, you score some points. And I try to make some sort of game where everyone reveals things and then they're trying to kind of guess what action everyone else is going to do. And then the more people who do exactly the same thing, the kind of, it's like, hey, we're all going to the park together. Yay, we all score big. Or, hey, I managed to... I went to, I can't remember, I hadn't done any theme. It was just kind of the first ever prototype. I just put all the locations at numbers. So it's like, oh, this person's gone to this other park. Oh, but they're all alone and the dog's not so happy. Because, you know, dogs want to be together. And it's like, I don't want it to, yes, you can think of things that involve the word rough and even being positive with each other and being a bit of a ruffian. But yeah, I want it to be a different game. I want it to be worth making. And I would like to go back to that. But obviously right now, it's not the perfect time to be working on games that are about looking at each other and looking at each other's faces. Dave, you're absolutely correct. Sniffing each other is completely thematic. And giving a shout out to other games with puns, I want to give a quick shout out to friends of the show, Warren Wars, who are Kelsey and Emily from Birmingham, who I met in Birmingham, and they made a game all about rabbits and rabbit puns. And yeah, if you're all about the punnage and if you like rabbits, then check them out. I've not, you know, they're nice people. Oh wow. Apparently Michelle's got a dog that doesn't want to be near any other dogs. Wow, that's quite interesting. I mean, that's very unusual for dogs. And yes, Jess, you can watch from wherever you want. Now, again, we've run out of questions from the comments. So I'm going to go to Claire's Payne's question from Facebook. who typed in a question before, which was really lovely. Obviously, this is a bit self-aggrandizing, but this is genuinely what Claire wrote. Your games are quite easy to learn, understand, and play. Thank you very much. But you must spend so much time and effort getting it just right. Do you follow the same process to create each game, or does it vary depending on the game? I think that might have been a typo. It might, but yeah, do you follow the same process or does it vary? Now, I think I've already addressed this a little bit yesterday, that kind of if you come to anything with the same starting point, with the same goal, you're probably going to end up in a similar space. And so let's say your goal is to, I mean, even if, so going back to the Mark Rose Watser quote, restrictions breed creativity. If I say, okay, I'm making a game about dogs, like right now, what would that game look like? I mean, what do dogs enjoy doing? I mean, presumably they enjoy being with at least one other person. Maybe they enjoy being with a human. Maybe they enjoy sniffing things. Maybe the dogs enjoy, I don't know, yeah, they enjoy running around. They enjoy going for walks. They enjoy playing with, being played with. They enjoy interacting with things. And maybe that's what the dogs, it should be like maybe high action. Maybe it should be quite a fast game. Maybe there's some sort of real time element. Maybe you want to have a dog and match it to things that it wants to do as quickly as you can to keep the dog satisfied. I don't know. That's another way you could have a dog game. And Michelle says, yeah, chasing a ball, that's something that dogs like. I mean, maybe there's a pile of cards in the middle, and maybe you kind of have a pile of, maybe there's toys and stuff all scattered around the middle, and then you've got a little pile of dog cards. Then you lift one of the dog cards and it says something like, it has icons for what the dog needs. Then you take the icons from the middle and then you put them onto the dog cards to satisfy the dogs. And then you're rushing around to do that as quickly as you can. And you've got your own personal pile of dogs that you're trying to satisfy and make happy. I mean, that's a game. I mean, I don't know if it would be any good. It might not be different enough. It might be overcomplicated. But, you know, that's a game that I thought of literally just now. And the reason that I got to a different point was because I gave myself a different objective. So there's the restriction of saying, okay, I want to make a game about dogs. That's not something that I've done before. Well, I started off a prototype, but let's not go into that. That's not something that I've gone all the way forwards before. I've not made something that I'm happy with. Whereas if I were to say, okay, I'm making a word game, well, I've made loads of word games. I mean, I've made tens of words games, me alone, for the L deck. And so what I would say is that, yeah, if I'm making a words game, I've got to have some additional restriction to it. So I would say, okay, Mini Muckle, why did I make Mini Muckle? Because I enjoyed playing Muckle. I knew that Muckle could sort of work online, but maybe Muckle's a bit too long. Maybe I want to make Muckle a bit easier so that younger people can play it. And I said, well, let's start off by halving the deck, so that instead of taking about 20, 30 minutes, now it only takes 15 minutes. And now we can play it twice. Okay, let's simplify the scoring. Okay, what's the simplest scoring that we could get? Because, and I want to reward the long lines, but I want to also allow people to use shorter words. And then it came from this whole thing of trying to target to a new audience. And that was something that made me end up with a different game. And Seize the Power, a game that I'm working on, that was, okay, this is a game where you're trying to talk about discrimination and negotiation and literally subjugation of power. It's a really serious game where people play it, and at the end, I wouldn't say it's fun, but it's engrossing and nice to, I believe it's worthwhile, and maybe it makes people think. And so that kind of thing, you start off with a different objective, a different goal, and then you end up in a different place. But do you always follow the same process? So I guess that's not really the same process. That's like a restriction. I guess the process broadly, yes, I do. My process is basically, what are my restrictions? What am I trying to do? For example, Couple, the two-player word game for the L deck, it started off me saying, okay, I want to make a game called Couple. what is couple all about? It's okay, well, you've got to have two players, clearly. They love each other. Maybe they're cooperating. Maybe they're making words with each other. Maybe they're focusing on each other's words. And then I played it in a shop in Edinburgh. And then we just ended up having individual score piles, although at that point the idea was to have one score pile, make it the biggest you can. But then when we had the individual score piles, I was, wait a minute, what if the score piles have to be exactly the same? And that is a similar process, saying, okay, firstly, what am I trying to make? Secondly, have ideas, have multiple ideas. Some of those ideas are going to be good. Some of those ideas are going to be bad. And then you have to judge those ideas. Which ideas are good? Which ideas are bad? Because not every idea is even worth now testing. Now, next step, you decide which ideas to test, and then you test them, and then you play them with people, and then you see, hey, was that fun? That's the first thing. That's the most important thing. Is this even worth carrying on with? Should I work on this game? Because I'd like to think that I'm a decent designer, and like if you're also hopefully a decent designer, if you're planning to make anything, if you plan to be good, you at some point you kind of, it's okay to give up and say, not just give up on life, not just, I don't mean give up on life, I don't mean give up on your whole creative output, I just mean give up on one particular project. Because let's say I've made a drawing and I'm like, yeah, this is as good as it's going to be. Yeah, I'm going to stop now. I'm going to spend my time working on something else. That's a legitimate thing to do. And sometimes I make a game and I'm like, yeah, that's a nice game. Like I made a game about trees and growing trees and having flowers and stuff, and people were enjoying it. But there was a fundamental issue with like the cards. I couldn't quite get. It was a little bit too finicky because you had to swap the little tree towards a medium tree and then grab another card for the big tree, and it was a bit finicky, frankly. I mean, it was all right, but and so it was a good game, but it wasn't, I couldn't see how to ever make it a great game. And so for that reason, I gave up, because I believe I'm better than that, because I have other things that I could be working on. And then at the end, once you're like, yes, this is an idea that is worth working on, then you carry on, and then you're like, yeah, brilliant. I'm now seeing what's good about it, what's bad about it, change some things, change half of it, change the scoring entirely, throw a bunch of stuff in there, and listen to what people are saying, watch what people are saying. And when you play test it, the first question you need to, like, the most important thing is what people are enjoying, what should you not change, what people are not enjoying, or is getting in the way of their intended experience, what should you maybe change or get rid of. And thirdly, to frame those bits, what are these people in your intended audience? So like, it's okay for me to make a game and for people to say, yeah, this is way too simple, I don't like this, and for me to say, okay, I'm not listening to that person because this game is aimed for 5-year-olds. I just wanted to see, is it, if they say it's more of an activity than a game, that's completely okay. And every context, you've got to frame who is your target audience, who is this person that's giving you this feedback, and what is their lens that they're looking through, because you've got to look through whole lots of lenses. So yes, broadly speaking, I do follow the same process, but the details always have to be different, otherwise you're not going to get into the same thing. So thank you very much for that question, Claire Payne, if you are watching. So comments. We've got Alan Oughton says that Alan doesn't know a cat bar, but does know a dog bar. Apparently there are cat pubs in Praha and Bristol, according to Kate. And yeah, that's quite cool to know. And Michelle also commends me for Mini Muckle being a little bit shorter, so thank you very much, Michelle. And I personally am finding that I actually enjoy it a lot more than the original Muckle myself. And it's my housemate's favourite game for the L deck. Although last night we played one of this, and then they were saying, oh, I've not played Fable. Can we play Fable? And I was like, oh, I do want to go to sleep. It's nearly 12. And then we ended up playing Mini Muckle twice because they actually enjoyed this more. So the nice thing about this is that you can say, yeah, why not? It's just 10 minutes. Yeah, Dave, there are lots of cats cafes. So Michelle has a question. As far as I know, your games all use just cards. Have you purposely restricted them to no other components, or is that just how it worked out? Well, short answer, I purposely restricted them. But, I like to ramble a bit, so that's not enough of an answer. Let's go back to In a Bind, which I seem to have constantly now as a visual aid. This is a sealed copy, one of very few that I've got left. So, In a Bind, going back to the old days before I had kickstarted anything, it's kind of crazy. Like 6 years ago, this time 6 years ago, sorry, I hope I'm not being too self-promotional and too kind of up myself and too prideful, if you know what I mean, because I'm just really proud of the fact that when I look back, yeah, I kickstarted this in summer 2014, and then I got it out in 2015. And the reason that I kickstarted it was I didn't do a lot of things properly, and a lot of things I would do differently now. But the reason I kickstarted it successfully was because all of my Facebook friends said, hey, Bez really loves games, and let's support Bez. And that was basically what all my friends were doing, because it was my first time, and everyone was like, oh yeah, Bez is making a thing, let's support Bez, because Bez really wants to make games, so hopefully this is going to be good. And then I managed to kickstart this, and since then, I've had In a Bind and the expansions. Then I made the junior version. Then I made the Wibble Plus Plus, and then the deluxe edition, which I'm really proud of that box, and the Kitty Cataclysm box, which came in together. And now I kind of feel like, yeah, this is me. I'm in a position where I've done development for multiple companies. I've had 4 companies offer me contracts at this point, and so I am really proud, and I just want to take a moment to kind of big up myself and blow my own trumpet. Anyway, so back to 2013ish, 2012. Thank you very much, Michelle, for the big ups. So 2012-ish was, I maybe moved to London around 2011, 2012. I found Playtest UK. I had previously invented some board games. I had fallen in love with board games. I wanted to be a video game designer. And then I found out about this thing called Kickstarter. I was like, maybe I could use that one day. Maybe if I made a game that was actually good, people might want to fund it. And if people gave me money, then I could make it. So that would be pretty cool. And so that's basically what I set out to do. And so I made a game, and I made originally a game that was kind of quite meta. It was a game about Kickstarter. So my first game had little sorts of cards that you put chips on. So you kind of had to do some works for these different projects. And then you had to assemble projects in a different way. It was kind of like a polyomino thing. This was way before the polyomino craze went off. Man, I realized I was a bit ahead of my time. Well, but we never finished it. And of course, as we all know, finishing something is 90% of the work. There's the whole 80-20, where the last 20% of a project, as perceived from the outside, is actually 80% of the work. And that's so true. Anyway, so I made this Kickstarter game, and it had screens and money and a whole bunch of things. I was like, yeah, this is a game that it seems to be good, but... And then I had another Wizard game, and I was like, you know what? I kind of I'm not sure if I could make this game. I'm not sure if I could get the money from people and then publish this game because of all the components. I know it sounds really simple, but a card game, it's so much cheaper. Being able to go to one factory and say, hey, this is what I want. I want 55 cards inside it, or depending on where you go, it might be 55, it might be 56, but inside a tuck box, which is like a little box which has a flap on it. I can show with the Wibble Plus Plus. This isn't quite as good because it doesn't have the little thumb hole, but Fabric Arts did make me thumb holes for the next ones. So this is a tuck box. It's really cheap. You make this sort of packaging because this is the cheapest you can make. And with in a bind, I was committed to making something that was just cards. And I've told the story of In a Bind before. I'm not going to bore you with all of that today. Maybe like I'll have a morning thing that is just about In a Bind and Yogi, and why not? And I just want to say that, yeah, I felt, yes, this is a thing that I can make. And I am aware that if I make a card game, it's going to be much easier to do. And I am working to license something that is just a card game. So it's not as if, oh my God, it's just a card game, therefore I can make it, because there is so much marketing and stuff that has to be done. So that's the reason why Yogi, not this version, this is the, I don't know what language that is, Rak Niet in de Var. I think it's, yeah, I've no idea what language that is, which is kind of cool in a way. But anyway, there's a reason why that's sold about, how many? Nearly 100. It's almost sold like 100 times as much as this ever sold. And the reason for that is, okay, it's had a bit more time to do it, but also because Gigamic has a really good marketing thing, and they are an international company, whereas I am just one person still struggling to reach out to people. And so given my situation, if I can print something and say, hey, here I want to give you 2,500 quid and then you give me a whole bunch of games, that is so much more affordable than saying, hey, I want to give you even something like just one, where it has whiteboards or stuff. It doesn't look, it's not an expensive game, but that's because they print hundreds of thousands of copies. I mean, there is a massive thing with magnitude of scale. And that's why, yes, as I say, all my games use just cards because A, it's cheaper to print. B, it means that I can afford to sell them at a vaguely reasonable price, even though I'm only printing 1,000 in general. And C, I need to raise less money on the Kickstarter. And I can say, hey, everyone, yeah, like for the game that's going to be known as Plus, I was thinking to myself, can I possibly afford to get it down to £10? And I'm thinking, I was looking at cheap-ass games, their entire model, and that's such a cool idea. And what if I went back to some cheap-ass game style things? So, oops, lost my screen for a moment. So, yep, any other questions? So let's go back to Claire Payne's questions from before. When you play games that you haven't created, do you ever think about ways in which you would make any changes to improve the game? Absolutely. And sometimes I even do it. So let's talk about house rules. Let's talk about kind of whether you should do house rules, whether it's against the intent of the designer, whether some games are some sorts of pure art form that should not be house ruled. Now, let me talk about things that I absolutely disagree with. I disagree with people when they play a heavyweight strategic game. Let's say someone plays something a bit more like Turn and Taxis, which was mentioned earlier, thanks, Kate, or indeed Terraforming Mars, or I want to Energy Empire, or even Demaker. Let's say you were to play one of those games, and then let's say after a game or two, your group suddenly said, hey, yeah, this game's broken. That strategy always has a massive advantage. I don't like this game. Let's say that this card is too powerful. We're not going to play with this card anymore. Or, oh, this faction's too powerful. We won't play with it. Or, oh, this thing's too much. Now, there are instances when that is completely true. I mean, if you look at Martin Wallace's Few Acres of Snow, that's an example of Martin Wallace did a lot of work to that game. Martin Wallace, it's a game about combat, about like basically combat in the French-Canadian area. And then there's a dominant strategy that after a while people worked out and said, oh yeah, with this strategy, this player does have massive advantage. And it turns out that this was just something that Martin Wallace had not encountered during playtesting. So it is absolutely possible that that happens. But realistically, the designer has played the game hundreds of times. So true, you might be amazing game players. You might have seen some massive problem with it. But if you're making a house rule for strategic reasons or for balancing reasons, I would urge anyone to say, slow down, let's give this game a few more goes before we do that. Now, changing a game for balancing reasons is completely different to changing a game for reasons of taste or game flow. Let's say I'm playing whatever. Let's say I'm playing a game and then I personally prefer to have a little bit more information up front. I would like there to be, okay, a choice of 3 cards rather than a choice of 0 cards and you pull one from the top of the deck. That seems like, okay, that is making it to a slightly different game, and maybe that's going to have some ramifications on other strategies, because if you can choose cards, presumably there's going to be more chances of you getting cards that have synergy together. But at the same time, I want to say, yeah, you can say, oh, that's a style of gaming that I prefer. And I like everything else about this game except that one thing. And I know that Paul Grogan is big on saying, yeah, I don't like randomness. I'm just going to turn over that one card so that everyone can see this one card, what the next action card would be, so that we have that slight information. And that's a matter of choice. That's a matter of taste. That's a matter of balancing the amount that it would slow down things, because you've got new information, you've got to consider that might slow your decision making down, compared to the joy of being able to strategize and being clever of, yeah, I made a good choice or whatever. And yeah, so by the same token, let's talk about party games, because that's a thing that I love. And if you play the original In a Bind, it came with 2 blank cards. Now, people came up with all sorts of rules for them. Someone came up with the rule that when they drew a blank card, they were allowed to just house rule that right then and there. So my intention was that you just draw on them and, like, okay, you customize your own game a little bit. But then people came up with different rules. And sometimes I've done that with a party game, even before I play it. I read the rules and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, this game has this thing that's not going to work for me and my group. I'm going to make this slight change. And I think that if you are in a position where you are the game curator for your friends, because frankly, yeah, of all the people that I live with, we've got, I don't know, about 350-ish games in this house, and probably about definitely less than 10 of them don't belong to me. So I'm clearly the board. I would say George has about 3 games. Mina owns 1 game because I bought it for Mina. Because I bought Mina Fog of Love. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, I think it's only about 4 or 5 games that aren't mine, but they're all kind of put into one big pile. And so if you're at the point where you're kind of being the game curator, that you're kind of showing your family, oh, this is what's going on, then yeah, feel free to house rule things and just say, oh yeah, Carcassonne, we're going to play this, but we're going to play it without the farmers to start off with. Because, hey family, I know that you're a bit new to games, so we're going to just play without the farmers for now. And that's totally fair. But then let's talk about, do I think about how I would make it different? There is a whole thing that someone else coined a phrase called spite design, which is basically saying, I love this game, but I would do that one thing differently. And sometimes you feel incredibly passionate about it, and you're like, oh, if only they did that one thing differently. And then you might feel so strongly that you make the entire game yourself just because you want it to exist. And yeah, I do like to kind of think about, it's kind of, when I'm a developer, not a designer, so like you've got design where you kind of make up the game broadly. Okay, what kind of game is it? Is it any fun? Okay, yeah, it's fun. Brilliant. The design is done. Then you've got the development phase where it's like, okay, this is a fun thing. How can we make it even more fun? How can we maximize the amount of fun and make it the best game for our target audience? We've designated the target audience. Okay, we're going to develop it for them. Now I've done a bit of that. It's like, both for projects that I've designed myself, but also in terms of stuff by Bez, I've done it for a lot of L games like Categorical that I did a lot of development for. I've done it for Alley Cat Games. I've done it for other people. And with development, you do look at the game and you think, what's the fun part? What's the not fun part? And this is something that, to an extent, you can't turn off. And it's kind of, I would say it's not that I design games, therefore I am more introspective and analytical about things. I would say the cause and effect goes the other way. Like all through my life, when I finish watching a TV show, I would like to think, why is this funny? Why did I enjoy this? What do I not like about this? And I would really love, even watching something as Sister Act, sitting down with someone and talking really in depth about it, but people don't normally want to talk about things in an in-depth way with me. And so having that desire to talk about things and analyze things in an in-depth way probably means that you're going to be better at making that sort of thing, if you know what I mean, because you're then going to pay more attention to the details. And so, I think that's an answer for Claire Payne. Let me turn that off. And Dave Wedderall has one last question. And if you've got any more questions, assuming there are reasonable questions, I'm just going to plug my laptop in quickly. Assuming there are reasonable questions, I will probably answer them on Wednesday, I guess, because tomorrow, just to give a quick bit of a plug, where's Kawaii? I recently ran a poll to say, hey, would you like, I'm going to start doing a game review like twice a week. That seems like a reasonable amount of time. I might do it thrice a week, but just one and Kawaii were the ones that were voted highest. So tomorrow I'm going to blether about Kawaii. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask. But I'm sure that the topic of what Kawaii is and why I like it and why I don't like it. And spoiler alert, I really like this game. This was my favorite game of last year. It's really awesome. And but it might not be for everyone. No game is for everyone. You can learn more about it tomorrow. Anyway, so Dave Wedderall, have you thought of making some of your games with different shape cards? Yes, I have thought about it. I mean, so often people say, like, I've thought of a lot of things. I have thought of an L deck literally made out of stone. So imagine, like, if all of these were literally kind of maybe not slate, because slate is kind of fragile. I'd want something a little bit thicker. But imagine if it was like a bag of like 48 stones, like kind of flattish pebble type things. And then on each one it had the letters and the number and the kind of border design. And how cool would that be? Like, you could play, it would be like the ultimate all-terrain game, although it would be pretty heavy to lug around. It would just be a novelty item. I thought of that. I mean, it's completely impractical, but it's fun to think about. Yes, I have thought about making games with different shaped cards. And I guess Dave's saying this because this is something that Dave's done with High-Low. And I use these shapes of cards because these shapes of cards are cheap and easy to print. Honestly, if I personally published games that were using an unusual shape of card, then I'd kind of lose a lot of that. I mean, I guess you've got, what shape of cards could you have? You've got like the round cards. You've got, I mean, that's as seen in Double, as seen in Dave Wedderall's own High-Low, and seen in a lot of games, just round cards. You've also got really thin, like, cards which are literally about that size. You've got cards, I don't know if anyone knows the Chris Handy. I mean, this is the time when I wish that my games library was just here so that I could just reach over and get it. But I'm going to have to illustrate. So Chris Handy's games are literally about the size of, about this size, let's say. Each card is literally about the size of a stick of chewing gum. And the whole box is the size of a, pack of chewing gum. And it's awesome. Like, you've got, I've seen no other company making cards of this size. And it's, I think it's like the ratio is about 1:6, something like that. And it's a crazy long ratio. And it's like, what kind of games could you make with this? Well, you can hold them up a bit more. You can make a grid with them. It's completely different types of games. By contrast, you could have cards which are just round or whatever for the sake of novelty. I mean, you can have. I could pay money to make whatever shape of cards I wanted. If I wanted a cat head shaped card, I could pay money to have that. I could pay money to have Cataclysm made like that. But then you've got to ask, would that even be practical? I mean, would it feel as nice in your hand? Would it be able to stack? I mean, the advantage of having a corner is, frankly, so that you can splay out the cards like that. That's a really strong advantage. And if it were curved in, you'd lose all of that. So yes, you get lots of novelty playing cards, but that's our kind of weird shapes. But that's what they all are. They're a novelty. It doesn't feel like they're there for a purpose. And with round cards, let's talk about them for a moment. The nice thing about round cards is that they can be seen from any angle. There isn't any up, down, left, right. So let's look at Double. Double is a game where you're recognizing pictures and trying to match them to yours. Now, there is no sense of, oh, this is at the top of your card, this is at the bottom of my card. It's a round thing. It could be anywhere. And that fact that the card has no orientation and you get to see the whole card at once, that is a big part of the Double game. I mean, Michelle's talking about equilateral triangle-shaped cards. I mean, for sure, if you used equilateral triangles, or indeed hexagons, or indeed squares, then that would be nice in lieu of tiles. So you could use kind of cards to build up a map or something. That would be quite nice. And I have thought about games where you're doing that, but I hadn't actually seriously considered equilateral triangle cards. I mean, I guess then the other question becomes, how would you put it into a box? Because let's say I've got an equilateral triangle. I mean, I guess it could be sort of like boom, 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 like that sort of shape, but it feels like the nice thing about having okay, let's talk about boxes, because genuinely a nice thing about cuboid boxes is that they stack nicely. You can put them away, you can put them on top of each other. That's a nice thing. That's our convenience. And if you do get a box that is literally an equilateral triangle, I mean, that would be cool. And that, I know there's a lot of companies that do this kind of novelty stuff, but personally, I don't like it. I mean, I know, like, Yogi, it comes in a cuboid box for this version, which I've still not worked out what language that is. I generally have forgotten. I mean, I probably, I think it's Netherlands because it mentions .nl at the back. Anyway, so that's that version. And then you've got this version, which is the English version, which is in a tin. Now, the problem with a tin is if you put like two, let's see how many tins can I put on top of each other. 3, 4, 5. Like you can sorts of stack it, but it's getting a bit wobbly. 6. Whoa, it's about to fall off. So at 6, you know, it's about to fall off. And if I've got a shelf of stuff, you know, I would imagine piling it more higher than that. But for a lot of people, maybe it's just on the top of their table, and then having a thing is totally fine. And so, yeah, equilateral triangle cards, I like that idea. Maybe an equilateral triangle or box, but the game would have to justify it. I think that for me, that's an important thing. That I don't want to just have cat-shaped cards for the sake of it. I really love the idea, Michelle, of equilateral triangles, because that would be a really nice grid-making game, and it could be like tiles, but just a little bit cheaper to produce. And then you do have to get into the cost of making a custom box, because seriously, the box is the most expensive thing about making a thing. And yeah, Michelle says, you're right, novelty-shaped boxes or aviating. What do you mean by aviating? Is a nightmare to store. Peep mats in an egg, even bananograms, apple letters don't store well. Oh, packaging. Ah, that makes so much more sense. Novelty-shaped boxes or packaging is a nightmare to store. Yes, I agree. And I've got that fish game, you know, Happy Salmon. I love that, and it's like in a little fish, and it's joyful. And I've got jungle speeds that I love. And for me personally, I keep the card line games actually in the boxes, even though it's a bit fragile and you can't put too much on top of them. Three equal stacks of the triangles line up to make a rectangle. I'm not sure they would though, because if it's an equilateral triangle, wouldn't it always be like a pyramid shape, sort of? I mean, I feel like there's definitely a game here. I mean, but anyway, the point is, I think we've already got to 11 o'clock, which is when I want to wrap up. This is a really interesting topic, Dave. Thanks for kind of starting it. Thanks for Michelle. Thank you, Kate, for following along. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Alan Outson, for watching and for your wonderful pun. And thank you, everyone else who was watching. And yeah, if you've enjoyed this, parallelograms. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, it is parallelograms. It's not rectangular at all. Parallelograms are totally different. Anyway, so one more time, I am going to paste the link to my current Kickstarter. There's about 3 days to go. If you do like the cat puns, which I didn't want to show earlier, but like it was a nice thing to kind of have as a stopgap for the things. So if you like the idea of having your own catalogue of stickers, you could collect a cat's ass trophy and maybe it'll cheer you up. And if you want to have a bit of an app, that's totally okay. But you can catch these stickers. You don't have to be part of a pyramid scheme, or you don't have to be a cat burglist, or even a cat burglar. And yeah, to get those stickers, all you have to do is go to the Kickstarter link that I showed before, and you can get currently 7 different pictures, 2 copies of each, which is 14 quid for 2 quid within UK, or an additional 2 quid to send it elsewhere. And if you are buying from elsewhere outside of the UK, you might want to buy a couple more. You can also get 2 packs of stickers for 3 quid, which is quite a good deal. And again, thank you everyone for watching. It has been so much fun. It's been so invigorating. And I hope to see you in some manner of see you at some point in the future, tomorrow or whenever. And for now, bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now I have to go. Thank you, everyone, and bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.